Okay, let's dive right in. You know, about a year ago, a speech in the White House Rose Garden kicked off a massive trade war. And today, well, you're the one feeling it every single time you hit the checkout line. So we're going to break down exactly how that one political moment is connected to the price you're paying for, well, pretty much everything.
I know, it sounds kind of dramatic, doesn't it? But seriously, what if I told you that your morning cup of coffee, the car you drive, even the shoes on your feet, they all got just a little bit more expensive, almost silently, because of what was said on that day? Stick with me here, because we've got the numbers, and oh boy, do they tell a story.
All right, so here's the quick and dirty timeline. It all kicked off on April 2nd, 2025. They called it Liberation Day, and it was this huge announcement of sweeping country-by-country tariffs. But then, plot twist, a legal challenge. Fast forward to February 20th of this year, and the Supreme Court steps in, ruling that the whole legal basis for those tariffs, illegal. The response? Well, almost immediately, a brand new set of 10% tariffs were slapped on, just using a different legal reason. And that whole chain of events is what set the stage for everything we're dealing with today.
Okay, so let's bring this down to earth. Enough with the high-level politics for a second. Let's talk about you. What does all this actually mean for your wallet, for your family's budget? How much is this trade war really costing you?
And here it is, the big number, the bottom line. We're talking over $1,000. That's what the Tax Foundation says the average U.S. household is paying extra every single year. And that's for the exact same stuff you were already buying, your groceries, your clothes, your car. I mean, this isn't just some abstract statistic. That's a real direct hit to family budgets all over the country.
And it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. Listen to this. This quote comes from the founder of a skincare company out in California. She's talking about how her orders went from costing $10,000 to $15,000. That's a 50% jump, just like that. And why? Because she depends on things like oils from France, packaging from Spain, herbs from Tibet. Suddenly, her cost just exploded. And that's exactly the kind of pressure small businesses have been under.
And hey, it's not just the little guys. We're talking about giants like Procter & Gamble, the company that makes like half the stuff under your sink. They said these tariffs hit them with $1 billion impact. $1 billion. So what do? Well, they had to raise prices on a quarter of their products. So when you're in the store and you see those prices just creeping up on everyday stuff, yep, this is a huge reason why.
Wow. Okay, look at this. This chart just perfectly shows what happened on the industrial side of things. The price for a ton of steel here in the US is shot up to $1,000. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was paying around $400. I mean, just imagine for a second you're an American company trying to build cars or washing machines or whatever. Your main ingredient, steel, is suddenly more than double the price your competitors are paying overseas. How are you supposed to compete with that? It's an almost impossible situation.
So, obviously, this wasn't all happening in a bubble. The US made a move, and those price hikes sent massive ripples all across the globe. So the big question is, how did the rest of the world react?
Well, they didn't just sit on their hands, that's for sure. Other countries basically started talking to each other, and we've seen this flurry of new trade deals pop up all over the place. But guess who was noticeably absent from a lot of those conversations? Yep, the United States. You could say the global trade map is literally being redrawn right before our eyes.
Okay, so this is the real test, right? Let's look at the report card. How did this policy actually do against what it promised to do? The promise was simple: strengthen the economy, control inflation. But the reality? Well, economists at the Peterson Institute dug into the numbers, and they found that in 2026, these tariffs actually reduced the U.S. growth rate. And inflation, it was a full percentage point higher than it should have been. So, not exactly what was advertised.
Now this is maybe the single most important thing to understand. The whole theory behind these tariffs is that other countries are supposed to pay the price, right? That's the sales pitch. But look at the data. That's just not what happened. A staggering 85% of the cost of these tariffs was paid for right here in the US. It was either absorbed by American businesses or, and this is what happened most of the time, it was passed straight on to you, the consumer.
So, when you ask economists for the final verdict, what do they say? Well, this quote pretty much nails it. It has not been an utter disaster, but it has still been pretty bad. The sky didn't fall, but the general consensus is that the outcome was higher prices for everybody, a lot of strained relationships with our allies, and, well, not many of those economic benefits we were promised.
Okay, so that's the 30,000-foot view. That's the what happened. But now, let's talk about the what now. What can you actually do about this? How do you navigate this new reality when you're at the store?
All right, here are 4 practical tips to keep in mind. First up, if you can, buy local. Goods that are manufactured here are probably going to be less affected by all these import tariffs. Second, for those big purchases, a new fridge, a car, try to track the prices for a while. Don't just jump in. Third, remember how other countries are making all those new trade deals? It might be worth diversifying where you shop online to see if you can find better prices. And last, keep your eyes peeled. Some businesses are actually getting refunds on those tariffs that were collected illegally, and that could mean that some prices will start to slowly come back down.
So in the end, that court ruling didn't really end the trade war, it just changed its shape. And look, whether you think the whole strategy was a stroke of genius or a huge mistake, the data points to one undeniable fact. The bill for it all landed on the receipts of ordinary people. We're the ones who paid for it at the checkout. Which leaves us with one final massive question to think about. Was it really worth the price?